Hi students, welcome to another episode of Peace History Time. In this episode, we're really going to be looking at World War I, which is definitely a huge topic within AP European history. And to kind of get into World War I, you have to look at the causes, specifically the causes that are going on in Europe. At this time, there's going to be militarism, so these large militaries that have been building up over the course of the late 1800s and early 1900s, in which then all these other military leaders just want to start using them. It's almost like having like a brand new car, a brand new toy. You just kind of want to show it off. In this case, a lot of European leaders want to show off their militaries at this point and to show who has the dominance over in Europe. Another cause is secret alliances that are going on. There's a lot of alliances. People are flipping back and forth between this 1890s and early 1900s. No one really knows who's allied with who. So when World War I to start off, these alliances start just kind of firing off between everyone in Europe. So everyone's going to be on one side or the other. Colonies and imperialism is going to be a big thing because really World War I is fighting over land territory because land equals power. And lastly, this new idea of nationalism is forming throughout a lot of these smaller European areas, such as in the Balkans, which is where World War I is actually originally going to begin. But then you start having nationalism with these other countries to show that our country is better than everyone else. Now, the thing is, the last major continental war happened in 1853 to 1856. It was the Crimean War. So there's been definitely a generation, almost 60 years since there's been a major continental war happening in Europe. So this is kind of leading into very ripe conditions for an all-out global scaled war. Now, if we're looking at the immediate catalyst of World War I, it goes to June 28th, 1914, when the Austrian heir to the throne of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, is visiting in Sarajevo, which is at this point, Sarajevo is part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, but Serbia wants this area, which is now kind of Bosnia, Sarajevo, to become an independent country. Now, Archduke Franz Ferdinand is nothing like Franz Joseph, who's the emperor. In fact, he is a reformer. And the problem is that this Black Hand Gang, which is a group of Serbian terrorists, they're nationalists too. Their whole entire goal is if they kill Archduke Franz Ferdinand, then there won't be any new reforms in which then these Bosnian Serbs then would keep on following the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. They wanted them to be still persecuted because then they would rise up and this nationalism effort that was happening in this Bosnian Serbian area would actually start to come, to a head. And this Black Hand Gang, they were successful in assassinating Archduke Franz Ferdinand. It was actually by accident. The car the driver took a wrong turn right in front of Gavrilo Princip, who was one of the members of the Black Hand Gang, after he was done eating a sandwich at a deli. And there you go, pulls the trigger, he's dead, and the World War I kind of begins from there. Now, the thing is that it took, a month or two for people to start to mobilize and kind of put blame on Serbia. But when this does happen, Austria, Hungary, and Germany declare war on Serbia. Russia, declares war on Germany and Austria-Hungary. And then you have France and England honoring their treaty with Russia, and so they join in. And then Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire will join on the side of the Central Powers, which is going to be Germany and Austria-Hungary. So you're going to have really two major sides. You're going to have this Allied side, you're going to have the Central Powers. And they're called the Central Powers because they're literally in the center of Europe, if you're actually looking at a map of Europe. So Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and Ottoman Empire pretty much versus everybody else in the world. So one of the first things that the Germans were pretty much attempting to do was something called the Scheifelen plan, created by this guy named Scheifelen. And the whole entire point of it was to eliminate France from the equation, go through Belgium, eliminate France, and then try to rush back to the Eastern Front so then they can fight against Russia. So that was pretty much the whole entire idea behind it. However, though, this scheifelen plan is not going to be that successful because there's going to be brand new style of fighting called trench warfare, where neither side could really move too far one way or the other because of the new powerful weapons. So this lightning fast scheifelen plan using these railroads that kind of go through Belgium and go into France, then they get stuck in France, and that's where a majority of the Western Front is going to be fought. It's going to be fought pretty much in France. So, like I said, the scheifelen plan definitely going to be a major failure in the whole grand scheme of things. Plus, also, Russia is kind of starting to hold their own in the Eastern Front, even though you're going to see later in the Russian Revolution video, things are not going as well for Russia with regards to a lot of their domestic things that is happening. Your first major battle of World War I is this Battle of the Marne. And this was a direct cause of the scheifelen plan, in which then you're starting to see this trench warfare kind of being enacted. Also, the Battle of Somme is going to be another one in 1916, in which you're going to have millions of soldiers on both sides that are pretty much going to, unfortunately, perish in this fighting. You also have Verdun as well. So these major battles that are occurring between the Western and Eastern Front are going to be adding on to a lot of the atrocities that are happening during World War I. In the Eastern Front, things are pretty much the same that was happening in the Western Front. Okay, in the Eastern Front is mostly Russia versus the Germans, and even the Austrians were kind of getting involved specifically with the Eastern Front. And trench warfare is also happening as well. Now, the thing is, where the Eastern Front kind of takes a turn is when the Russian Revolution occurs, and Germany kind of leaks out Vladimir Lenin to go cause this Russian Revolution, in which then Russia signs a treaty that they pull out of World War I. In this case, on the side of the Allies, they completely pull out, and therefore the Eastern Front is no more, and Germany can now focus all their troops onto the Western Front. Now, the only thing is that the Germans knew that the United States was kind of getting involved, at least trading-wise, with the Allied powers, specifically England and France. So the Germans were attempting to try to keep the United States fighting within North America and not have them come over to Europe. So they had devised a plan called the Zimmermann Note, in which they would send a telegram over to Mexico, in which said, hey, look, Mexico, if you fight the United States, you can keep all the lands that you lost in the Mexican-American War. Thing is, though, the note never made it to Mexico. It was intercepted by the British, and the British then told the Americans, and voila, the United States then officially declares war. And then fights on the side of the Allies, in which then they're traveling over to Europe. And that's going to be this great catalyst, in which then you're going to see that World War I is slowly going to slow down on the side of the Germans, in which then Germany is eventually going to be forced to surrender. Colonially, and the colonial aspect of it, Japan is attacking China. You're having a lot of battles in the Middle East. There was a movie, back in the day called Lawrence of Arabia that was kind of dealing with this aspect of it, fighting the Ottoman Turks. So this is kind of what we call a total global war. And Germany was even using this aspect of a total war with propaganda, saying, hey, look, you need to kind of go, join this fight, and how this is now spreading outside. A lot of economic aspects are being focused into a nationalization of factories in order to continue with this war machine. And like we said, Russia kind of gets out of it, but you're seeing that other colonial groups, fighting in Africa, fighting in Asia, that is going to pick up. There's going to be naval blockades all over the place. The British are pretty much, getting blockaded at one point by, German U-boats that they were pretty much sinking. They sink the Lusitania at one point. And another aspect of it is that there was something called the Sussex Pledge, in which the Germans had announced that they were going to give 30 minutes before they sank any ship that wasn't, really a military ship, such as a passenger or mail ship, things of that nature. And then they decided to stop doing that because they said, why are we giving them 30 minutes so then they could bring submarines in and kind of take us out? So the Germans started violating, those aspects of it. But it gets to a point where both sides are like, you know what, enough is enough. So the Germans try to have a, ceasefire, truce, come up with some sort of treaty and kind of end the whole entire thing. Well, England and France and even the Italians, they just want to punish Germany when they get to this, Versailles, where they're going to be, meeting with everyone. The United States, American President Woodrow Wilson gets there and he has these 14 points and trying to stop, war from ever happening again. And a lot of it had to deal with ending colonial possessions, having an international organization, the League of Nations, which the United States is never going to join. Go check out my Period 7 video for everything about the Treaty of Versailles with the American impact of it. But one of the bigger things is that with this punishing of Germany, which Germany was pretty much just saying, hey, look, we were just trying to have kind of a ceasefire here, but now all of a sudden we're getting blamed for everything. So they told the Germans, look, you have to accept all of the blame for this war. You have to pay war reparations. We're going to limit your military. You have to give back lands to France that you took during the Franco-Prussian War, under Otto von Bismarck. So Germany really kind of gets the short end of this whole entire, short end of the stick here. And Kaiser Wilhelm II, who is the leader, the dictator, if you want to call him that, the king of Germany, has to abdicate the throne, and they create this new Weimar Republic, which is going to be kind of like a democratic republic of Germany, and he's forced to abdicate the throne. Now, there's going to be a lot of results, specifically dealing with World War I. World War I ends the monarchs of Russia and Germany. Austria-Hungary is broken up now into many different places. There's Yugoslavia. Hungary is now going to be its own independent country. Poland is even becoming its own independent country. You're going to see that the women's suffrage movement is really going to start to pick up if we're looking at domestic aspects of it. In the United States, it's happening in 1920. England, almost every single woman has the right to vote by 1928. So you are seeing a democratic process going through it. There are 25 million people that are going to end up dying with regards to this. And colonies are going to be divided up between the winning powers, specifically England, France, and Italy are going to be kind of the main benefactors of it. The United States and Woodrow Wilson decided we really didn't want these colonies, so they didn't exactly accept a lot of them. But the one big thing that you need to take out of World War I is that it's going to cause the rise of dictators to start to form within Europe. This idea of fascism. And really, World War I can be blamed for the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany and also Benito Mussolini in Italy. But that's going to be for a later unit. So thank you for watching this episode of Peace History Time. Please like, subscribe, comment. I'll be doing more of these and other topics that if you want to see, so please let me know if there's anything else, and I hope that you do really well on the AP exam. So thank you for listening, and that's history to me.